Government?
Yep.
Okay, Louis.
Can someone just open the door, please?
Okay, welcome everybody to the ordinary meeting of Snowy Valleys Council, 23rd of August 2018. Just like to pay my respects to the traditional owners and to elders past and present. Call for apologies and leave of absence. I have one from Councillor Ham, and also Councillor Lata is delayed, so he's asked that an apology be put in for him until he arrives, if he does, because he has a flight that's been delayed. Someone like to move that way? Councillor Wright? Councillor Cross? All in favour? Okay. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Anyone have any declarations? Councillor Benjamin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a non-pecuniary interest on item number 11.4 for the Festival Calling Leave. I'm actually a volunteer member to that particular committee.
And you'll be staying in the room?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for that. Confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. Meeting. 26th of July. Someone move that way. Councillor Smith. Councillor Wright. Nothing arising from that. All in favour? Okay. There's no correspondence or petitions, but there is two late reports. One's a mayoral minute. Mayoral minutes, I'll move that way. It's the Councillor's request to attend conference, and the recommendation is the Council approve the attendance of Councillor Bruce Wright at the Institute of Foresters of Australia and Australian Forest Growers Conference, September 2 to 5, 2018. And the agenda's attached there. Somebody move. Somebody. Everybody have any comments on that? Councillor Wright? Agree with that?
Yeah, I'll do that.
All in favour? Carried. Sorry. The mayoral minute, I'll move it.
So, clarification, you move, it doesn't mean seconding, we actually have to have a move and a second for the actual minute itself.
Would somebody like to move and second? Councillor Cross? Councillor Benjamin? All in favour? Carried. Getting there.
Thank you, sorry, particular.
The second late report is the late report, it's not a mayoral minute.
It's just a way.
Okay, so that'll come in later. Governance and financial reports, 9.1. Page 14. The recommendation that councillors consider attendance to the Local Government New South Wales Conference, and the councillors bring forward any proposed motions, and the councillors nominated two voting delegates for voting on motions during the formal business sessions.
Moved.
May I make a suggestion through the chair that if you want to authorise all councillors, we actually change that first resolution to that all councillors be authorised to attend the Local Government New South Wales Conference, or if you authorise particular councillors to attend, then you could just authorise the particular councillors.
I think given that it's in Albury, I know Councillor Wright's already indicated that he won't be attending, but I think given that it's so close, I would like every councillor to have the opportunity, if possible. So all councillors be authorised
To attend.
And point 3, obviously, I'd ask that that would be me and Councillor Rana voting against.
Mayor and Deputy Mayor.
Susan, happy with that? Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Wright, Councillor Benjamin. Any further discussion? Councillor Wright, anything further? Put the motion. All in favour? Carried. Just Councillor Pitcher, you'd like to say
Just
something?
that,
Sorry, quick.
I won't be going, but it's in the middle of the flower season, which is very good. So people who have a horticultural business such as I have are precluded from attending these conferences, definitely. And I think we should look at asking them to vary the conference meetings to very different parts of the years.
Maybe have them on a rolling.
Yeah, but a lot of people can't leave in this part of the world, can't leave their horticultural crop in the middle of autumn.
I'll have you pass that on here. 9.2, Canberra Regional Joint Organisation meeting. Recommendation is the Council advise any comments to the Canberra Regional Joint Organisation governance documents to the General Manager by this Friday. Why? Thank you, Councillor Isman. Councillor Wright. Councillor Isman, any comments?
No, thank you.
Put the motion. All in favour? Carried. Policies and donations and event sponsorship. There's 4 recommendations there. Councillor Smith. Moving all 4?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wright. Councillor Smith.
I think it's a good document to tie together all of our all the things that we need to consider with donations, and it's good to have it in writing so that we know exactly where we're going with any applications for assistance.
Anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone else like to speak for the motion?
I think it's really good for the community to see, that there is an actual procedure to follow and people, it's open for everybody to see, and I think that's really important.
Thanks, Councillor Wright. Any further? Put the motion. All in favour? Carried. 9.4, Governance and Financial Reports. Three recommendations.
Moved.
Seconded. Councillor Islam, would you like to open debate?
Just to say that this is a very good report in relation to inform the general public about what's happening with our employment rate numbers, and I think it's a very vital part of the transparency of our council to our community, and we need to maintain this transparency.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
I just forward, I agree with Councillor Risselman on that, and it's good to see those numbers there, and all the community can see those numbers.
Thank you, Councillor Wright.
Clear.
Excellent, yes. No, I'd like to commend the staff on this report. It certainly gives us a lot more in-depth idea of what's happening. Anyone further? We'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? It's carried. Committee membership recruitment application for the Tumut Region Sports Committee. We've got 2 applicants there. I attend these meetings, and I can guarantee that both those people are very strong advocates for their sports and very representative of the community. So who'd like to move that? Councillor Benjamin. Second, Councillor Isselman. Any comments, Councillor Benjamin?
No.
All in favour? Carried. Committee membership recruitment application approval Aboriginal Liaison Committee. Moving that way, Councillor Pitcher?
Yeah.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Pritchard, any?
Well, it's going along quite well. I was originally elected as a deputy chairperson, but on reflection and in consultation with the Aboriginal community, I thought it was more appropriate that they had one of the Aboriginal people as the deputy chair, So I resigned from that, but I'm not going away from the committee. I reassured them that I will still be active in the community, but I thought it was more appropriate for them to run their own affairs.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Put the motion, all in favour? Carried. Governance and financial reports 9.7, adoption of fees and charges swimming pools.
Can I move that we go into committee for this?
Councillor Smith, thank you. Second, Councillor Cross, all in favour? In the committee. Councillor Smith.
Some discussion perhaps about the various charges and the adjustment to the charges, and perhaps also it's worth noting that there was not very much response to the public consultation in terms of changing the current arrangement, and it seems to have been a very happy event that the population have generally responded to very well right across the Shire.
I fully endorse your comments there. I've heard mostly positive. A couple of negative comments, but overall, mostly positive.
I think the only negative comment is about the where the finances come from to cover the loss of income.
Yep.
And,
No, so, Mr. Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to the financial and resources implications section of the report, I have reported a deficit of $150,000 in the previous year due to the reduction of fees for pool entry. I've also noted that it was taken out of the Parks and Gardens budget as per the resolution. Coming to the end of the financial year, the previous financial year, it was found that there were savings in the engineering services, salaries and wages budget, which has funded that shortfall, not the Parks and Gardens budget. So there was some reduction in Parks and Gardens budget, but it wasn't to the full extent of $150,000.
And in future?
Okay, Mr. Mayor. The suggestion in the recommendation, dot point 3, is that a further report be brought to council to discuss where that deficit will be funded from as part of the next quarterly budget review.
And we hope that will come from operational efficiencies.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, for you, I would be suggesting we could have a look at that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cross.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to know whether I see it as extending it as being a really great initiative, and I really welcome that. What I'd like to know is if we can get a better picture of community usage and the impact on the health and well-being of our communities as a result of increasing the usage. The other thing I'd like to see is whether we can create a better tool to assess the increase and feedback from our communities about how they feel about it. I'd like to know too whether we can work out if it has a flow-on effect, given that it's in the school holidays period, whether there's a flow-on effect in terms of reducing vandalism within our shire, but within our communities, because I know that's a very big issue. And also, I noticed that some of the negative feedback was around behaviour. Are the staff given training sessions on how to deal with antisocial behaviour, and what are the steps that staff take to minimise that? And then, if for those people who engage in antisocial behaviour, how are they able to come back and use the pool?
Okay. That's something we can consider. Yeah, but certainly some valid points there. And other than anecdotal, there's no way, and even the entry to the pool is anecdotal anyway. I think it's not counted all the time because there's not always somebody there, and there's not a turnstile to click them through. So if there's any other way of finding out what the actual usage is, it'd be handy. But,
I think it would be a really useful way of capturing what's happening so that other councils may wish to follow our example, and that this would give them tools.
Certainly there's a lot of councils who are looking at us. It's one of the questions I get asked the most when I'm away about our swimming pool. Any other comment? Councillor Smith.
Can we ask Mr Christensen, is there a mechanism available at the present time for council staff to eject troublemakers or undesirable elements from the pool?
Mr Christensen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. At the moment, the council staff do not have the training, nor is it within their scope of their roles with the organisation to forcibly remove individuals. They do act to ask them verbally to leave. If there is continued issues, the police are called. There is a mechanism in place for council to provide a banning notice to anyone who does cause a large enough issue or continuous multiple issues, which the police use to then take further action against individuals.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just like to record that the incidents that might have been thought about to be occurring regularly at the pools are very rare, and they're incidents that really haven't been a major concern over our free entry. But what I am not concerned, but I'd just like to raise through you, Mr Mayor, the report doesn't actually address the hiring of pool after hours, which was a process that we were going through when we went to introduce new fee structures some years ago. And I'm just wondering if hiring of pools is still going to be available to the community.
Mr Christensen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Typically, they would be dealt with on a price on application.
All right,
So the group would make an inquiry, give rough numbers of how many people are going to attend, and then that way council could determine how many lifeguards were required to be there, which is the main cost involved.
Yep. So a price on application, people can still hire the pool, although it's not represented in the report.
That's right.
Nothing further. The only thing I'll note is that the one application we did get was regarding the swipe cards. This is my personal opinion, but I'd suggest that the swipe cards are a luxury, and that would be one thing that we could increase.
And they're a privilege, and they should pay for the
It's a privilege, yeah. So that's how I see it. Any further comments?
Just anecdotally, I've had nothing but positive response from the general community about the kids having free access there. I think it's been a great thing, and I'm trying to obtain it. Doesn't matter how, but just anecdotally again, a friend of mine who goes to Junction Bridge regularly to the park there says that the misbehaviour there has dropped off considerably since the kids can now go. Those kids can now go to the swimming pool, where they might be playing up at the swimming pool, but they're under more supervision. So I think it's a terrific result.
Maybe they're being gentrified. If someone like to move, we go back. Councillor Cross. Councillor Wright. In favour? Okay. So here we have the recommendations. We don't have a move or a second just yet, so we need to move in a seconder. Councillor Benjamin, Councillor Wright. Any further discussion? Put the motion. All in favour? Carried. (9.8) page 38. Review carryovers for 2017-2018. Recommendation that council approve the carryovers as reported and endorsed for expenditure this year. Councillor Essendon. Councillor Cross. Councillor Essendon.
The only comment I have, Mr Mayor, is that the actual report in the document is very small, or even on screen. Quite small to read, so if I could possibly ask for us to have it in better format from future reference. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Essendon. Any further discussion? Motion, all in favour? Carries. (9.9) Statement of investments. Councillor Wright. Moving. Councillor Cross. I think I've missed the joke somewhere. Councillor Wright.
I think, yeah, that's a good report. I had a problem with it. Just I think we should look at more at the Bendigo Bank, and I say this all the time because I think we might get more interest from AMP and those sorts of people. They put nothing back into our communities, whereas Bendigo Bank does. And you know, I don't think AMP are the most horrible people we should be dealing with. Just my opinion.
That's your opinion, not the opinion of the council. Any further comments? No? Put the motion, all in favour? Carried. 9.10, Riverina Regional Library Advisory Committee delegation. Endorse and nominate an alternate council delegate to be appointed to the committee. Who's the current councillor? Councillor Cross. Do we have an alternate delegate who wishes to go to the library? Councillor Ismail? Anyone else interested? No? So we add Councillor Ismail in there. And note Council's senior management delegate to the committee is the Director of Strategy, Community and Development. And the alternate delegate to be the Divisional Manager of Community Services. Everyone okay with that? Do we have a mover? Can we do that?
Sorry, number 2.
That's okay.
We don't have a mover yet.
Okay. I need a mover. Councillor Isserman and Councillor Cross. Councillor Isserman, any?
No, thank you for that.
I'd like to just make a comment about having read all of these reports, and this one links it back to the community strategic plan, and I'd like to compliment the staff who write the reports and give us that linkage to our community strategic plan. It makes it keeps the CSP current and in our face, and it gives us a reference point, and I really commend staff for doing that. It makes it a joy to read.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. So, put the motion, all in favour? Carried. State government funding for New South Wales public libraries. There's 4 recommendations there. The Councillor for Libraries is moving that way?
Yes.
Thank you. The other Councillor for Libraries, seconding? Good. Councillor Ross?
Yes, our libraries are the hub of our community, and it's really, really important that we put forward our views about the reduction in money. I'm very, very concerned about the fact that we may have to reduce some of our services. Being a passionate supporter of early intervention, noting that a lot of families go along to story time, and the fact that the library is a very safe place for families, that it's a place for travellers to go calling to. So I strongly support that we make representation to the state government about the lack of funding.
May I just add, Mr Mayor, wouldn't it be nice if those numbers were reflected as tourism numbers?
Lovely. So I'll put the motion, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. .2, Radio Upper Murray Community Service User Agreement.
May I ask you a question, Mr Mayor? The council, general manager and mayor are interviewed on the radio. Does it go on to both radio stations across the council area?
I think there is the opportunity to do that. Yes.
That should be locked in. If you two are being interviewed, I think it should be broadcast on both this one and the Tumut one.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, that's the intent, to link them up, and they're endeavouring to do that at the moment. They've had some teething issues with infrastructure.
So it's on the way.
Yeah, it's in progress.
I have a question, Mr Mayor. I'm just wondering whether we should put the contribution amount in there in .2 rather than just the in-kind contribution for sponsorship or something of that nature in that recommendation.
Would you like to move that we
And
change the
in-kind.
recommendation?
Yes, thank you.
Move the recommendation with a change?
Yes, thank you.
Taking out the numbers and placing,
Taking out the 4,160 and putting in-kind contribution as sponsorship for radio promotion. I can't read it from here, I'm sorry.
can you make that a little bit bigger? to
In-kind
increase-
contribution.
As sponsor. Oh, that's better.
Sponsorship.
Sponsorship for radio promotion.
Cool. Okay, that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Very sensible amendment.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Mayor.
Please. So you second it?
Thank you. Oh, I can't second it, I've moved it.
Yeah, I know you've moved it. I'm calling for a second. Councillor Smith. Councillor Isman.
No, that's fine, I'm happy with as it is. Just one comment that I pointed out privately to Director Mr. Cox. There is inconsistency in the use of the name of the actual radio. It's Radio Upper Murray here, and in some of the documentation it's Upper Radio Murray. It needs to be consistent throughout the document.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do note that, and that will be amended for the final.
Just get the correct acronym.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not anagram.
Mr. Mayor, there are some changes that need to be made into the service agreement, which I have already indicated.
Indicated, how can that be changed? Thank you. Okay, put the motion, all in favour? Carried. Thank you.
Takes me to page 59, 10.3, proposed acquisition of land for the Bomboli fire shed. Councillor Wright. Moving. Councillor Benjamin. E.
It looks like all pretty straightforward. It's a good, well prepared. Everything looks good to me. It looks like a very sensible move.
Thank you.
Can I have just a little explanation that says, undertake acquisition of land for construction of a body rural fire service station. And goes on to say, undertake acquisition of Crown land by the compulsory process. Why should we be compulsory to acquire Crown land? Shouldn't we easily just ask them for it for a community purpose?
I'm sure there's an acquisition process to put a fire shed on.
It seems that just put a compulsory process implies that they're not allowing us to negotiate it.
Through the chair, we've received legal advice on this
Legal?
one. We've received legal advice and we're following the legal advice on the matter in consultation with the government
Could we
department.
go up and get our sidearms and go up to Parliament House?
There'll be no one
Maybe
there.
not.
There'll be no one
Councillor
there.
Pritchard, there's no one at home. So we'll just have to do
Well, we
without.
might have to go to England.
Possibly. Thank you for your concern. So we've got to move in a second. I think it's time to put this motion. All in favour? Carried. Arana Crescent Island Development.
Sounds very tropical.
Sounds tropical, but yeah, it's on top of the hill. Thank you, Councillor Wright. Do I have a second? Councillor Cross. Councillor Wright?
I think it looks like a good idea if we can get the community involved in beautifying an area that, by the pictures and things, it looks pretty scruffy. They want to make it look good, great. And I note that they say a bit later on that, well, I think one of our directors on the report said that they'll may get too old to be able to look after it, which is going to happen, but it's a risk it's worth taking, and maybe some young families will go on there and maybe even develop it further, so I think it's a worthwhile thing.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Wilson?
I have a concern that in the report there is a mention that the initial concept, all costs included, is estimated to cost in the vicinity of $10,000, and the recommendation says write to the residents outlining requirements for the development. So are we committing ourselves to $10,000 for this one island development in the street? That seems to be a bit of a danger zone, just excuse the fun, just for that one at the moment.
I think recommendation 1A, the availability of suitable grant funding, covers that.
Grants, I'm just questioning, Mr Mayor, where would the expected grants come from for a funding of a garden?
Okay. Mr. Christensen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. With regards to available grant funding, there are initiatives, both local and state, to involve people in community building. So there is a possibility of that. Grant funding can also allude to the budgetary process for the next year. Council sees it as a priority. They may wish to put it in the operational budget for next year. Currently, there is no money in the budget to undertake it, and hence why the recommendation is in Community Council to undertake it, just to seek grant funding or consider funding it in future budgets.
I think so.
Mr. Mayor, I'm propagating tree peas at the moment, which will be made available for public use, and I'd be happy to donate peonies in 12 months' time, small ones, to this
Very
project.
generous. Councillor Pritchard, I hope you grow on this island.
Mr Mayor, if I continue just for one moment, I've just relating back to the question I've asked there. There's been an upgrade of the Vista Gardens in Pioneer Street and corner of Selwyn and Tumbarumba Road in Batlow, where the plants were removed with a rather large piece of equipment and dug up and soil put in, and small plants have been included as one of the more recent projects in Batlow's upgrade. I'm not sure whether it's part of the new street plan or not, but fact remains is that upgrading of street vistas and rocky outcrops and so on needs to be considered fairly closely in relation to what's being planted and how it's designed and the consistency in relation to the town planning and those sorts of things. So I think we need to be careful that, you know, we have some control over how this is going to be evolved. We don't want massive big trees planted there or something of that nature as well. So we have to be careful that we don't allow this to become a project that falls into disrepair or is something we have a problem with in the future that causes us financial investment.
Thank you.
No, Your Honour.
All right. So we've got to move into seconder. Any further discussion? Put the motion. All in favour? Carried. Point 5, consolidations of lots 1 and 13 in DP 9269 Pioneer Street, Batlow, proposed new Batlow library development. 3 recommendations. Councillor Esselman, Councillor Smith. Councillor Esselman.
Great, good to see the progress. Once this is all done, I presume that then we'll be able to go ahead with the new library development. So we are, stage 1 is to get the lots joined together. Good move, thank you.
I'd like to speak to point 2, if I may, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
Approve the construction of the new Batlow Library. Now, I'm assuming that that doesn't, it isn't a comment on how the library will be, in fact, constructed, because there is still some community discussion about the look of the library. So I'm assuming that this in no way locks in the current design as it stands.
I wouldn't assume that. Mr. Christian.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It is the intent that a further report will be brought back detailing the outcomes of the community consultation that has just recently closed, and that will be coming to a forthcoming meeting. That's the next stage in the project development.
Yes, thank you. That's what I was wanted to make sure.
So, happy with that?
Yes.
Any further?
I'll just ask one question, if I might.
You're closing the debate?
Yes, please. If I could ask Mr. Christensen, the original facial front design of the Batlow Library has been changed in order to give that now front. I know it's not part of the finalised, but just on record to say that it has been upgraded from the original design. Is that correct?
For you, Mr Mayor, the plan that is in the report is used for illustrative purposes of the reasons why we need to consolidate the block. It has changed from the original plan that went out for consultation with regards to comments received. We've sought some further comments on it, now it needs to be brought back to council
Thank you,
for
Mr.
final adoption.
You can close the vote.
Thank you. For the motion, all in favour? Carried. Okay, 10.6 special event application, Snow Valley Cycling Chambers. Certainly a good initiative, and congratulations to the organisers for putting this together. Do I have a mover? Councillor Wright. Councillor Cross. Councillor Wright.
I agree, it's good, it's a great one, and anything to bring people around doing exercise is great. It was good that the traffic committee met via email and managed to get any concerns fixed. It's a no-brainer really.
Thanks, Councillor Wright. Further comments?
Just noting, if I could please, Mr Mayor, that both Councillor Wright and myself are both Rotarians, and this is a Rotary corporation, which we should have genuinely interested.
It's Achievement Rotary Club, isn't it?
And yeah, we're all involved.
All involved?
And Tom.
Congratulations.
Is that still downhill?
For us, it's down.
So we'll record that as well?
Record both councillors.
Okay.
You might didn't read that, but yeah, I probably wasn't at that roadie meeting.
Okay, and staying for the discussion of the road.
But have to delete reference.
Okay.
Both still happy to move it?
Yes,
Second it?
yes.
Are we happy with it?
It's up to you, but I would consider that.
Would somebody else, would you like to retract those?
I'll retract that.
We
So,
might,
yeah, for that
might have
one.
an alternative. Councillor Cross?
Yes.
And Councillor Benjamin, thank you. All in favour? Carried, thank you. Cool.
You taking it, Mr Mayor?
Sorry?
You're fine.
No, our brothers and well.
I'm riding in the event, Mr Mayor.
The 10.7 special event application, another one, the inward bound foot race.
No, Rotary's not involved.
I thought binding of the feet was outlawed.
Councillor Pritchard. That's enough levity. Are you moving? Yes.
I'll move.
Councillor Pritchard, you're seconding it.
I'll move.
You're too late, you'll have to second it. Councillor Rice moved it, Councillor Pritchard seconded it. Discussion?
After another great project, I think.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Put the motion, all in favour? Carried. Right, and Pritchard. So the General Manager's running this for you? 10.8, declaration of alcohol-free zones, Tumbarumba. Mr Cox's report, recommendations 1 and 2. Councillor Wright. Councillor Smith. Councillor Wright.
I think it's pretty strange. It's been well prepared and well laid out. And, I think it's for the good of the community. Don't see any big problem with it myself.
No submissions received, I see. Put the motion. Carried.
Mr Mayor, before we move on, might I just inquire if we're doing a report on signs throughout other villages and towns other than just alcohol-free zones? I note on Pioneer Street in Batlow still exists the signage that says no rollerblades, no roller skates, no skateboards, no scooters, and the children are right up to the front door of the front gate of the school, and they're riding their bikes and their scooters to and from school each day. So I'm just wondering if we could update those particular signage. It's a bit of a social disobedience by our children as they come out the gate, jump on their bike and ride down the street, and the sign says don't do it.
Through the chair, we'll note that as an operational matter and follow it up.
Thank you.
Have to add no fun on that sign as well.
That's what I will do.
Thank you, Councillor Esselman. All right, here we go. 10.9, Snowy 2.0, Stage 1 Exploratory Work Environmental Impact Statement Submission. Yeah, I think so. Someone like to move that we go into committee? Councillor Benjamin, Councillor Cross, all in favour? who'd like to start? Actually, before we start, I might ask Mr. Cox if he can just give us a rundown on this report. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So we've got the first development for the Snowy Hydro 2.0 being exploratory works. There's an EIS, an environmental impact statement that's been out on public exhibition. It did close last Friday, but Council got an extension to endorse at this meeting, so we'll submit tomorrow. It's been comprehensive consultation. Council attended or facilitated a meeting on the 8th of this month with the Tumbarumba Ratepayers Association, and it was attended by Snowy Hydro, and they've made a submission that we need to consider today. So I've got copies of their submission here and an overview about what in their submission doesn't align with our submission. Predominantly our submission relates to issues around the development in relation to traffic impacts, social and economic impacts and public safety. The major one being the effects that it's going to have in relation to the Tumbarumba reservoir, the spillway access for recreational use, which is one of the main concerns of the residents of Tumbarumba. So we'll just circulate this documentation and I'll talk you guys through it.
Thank you.
So predominantly the association agreed with the majority of the recommendations that we put in our submission, but the ones that we need to discuss today in relation to the association's raised about access to Junimar Pondage. We need to talk about that. They've raised about the construction of a swimming pool, public swimming pool in the township to offset the loss of amenity from the from the Tumbarumba Pondage. They've got some concerns in relation to the timeframes of the project. That we've covered about additional community infrastructure, that they've listed that they would like a walking track, cycling track right out to T3. So we've listed in our submission that we would like an increase in public infrastructure for that. We haven't specified an actual project for that. They've got some concerns which we haven't listed in relation to the effects of fishing and cray fishing with the dredging and the placement of rock in Tumbarumba Pondage. They've raised concerns which we've got in our submission in relation to the effects or the impacts to the spillway, some localised issues with the movement of cattle in relation to the spillway, which we haven't notated in our submission. So they've raised concerns in relation to the consultation with Snowy Hydro, the initial consultation, and in discussions with a number of the members after that meeting that we did hold earlier this month. They're happy that they've been well represented and have their points brought across. So some of the initial consultation they indicated that they weren't greatly happy with. They talked about the use of blowering, which we haven't covered in our submission as an alternative to Tumbarumba. And in our submission we've looked at, once the project's completed, leaving the staff accommodation as a proposal for 152 room or person camp, and we've made an expression to leave that camp for tourism purposes after the project's completed, and they've raised concerns in relation to how that will impact the tourism market in the township of Tumbarumba. So they're the items that don't align with our submission and what we need to discuss today. So I'll take any questions on those.
Councillors, any questions for Mr. Cox?
Do we have any evidence that new potential of the staff accommodation being let there would have impact on Talbingo? I mean, could it possibly potentially increase rather than detract from?
Yeah.
As I understand, Talbingo has a caravan park and a cabin space, and I don't think there's any overnight accommodation other than those two spaces. Is that correct?
There's a lot of short-term letting of
Short-term
residential
letting of
houses.
homes, yes,
Yeah.
apart from that, which is a different concept altogether.
Isn't there a hostel there, that timber building?
Yeah, there's a hostel building there as well.
I think that's reasonably good.
It's closed.
Yeah, Airbnb. I suppose one of the fundamental differences will be when the project's finished, the barge access or the access would be somewhat restricted across Talbingo Reservoir. So that predominantly the traffic would have to come down the Ravine Road if the camp was to remain there. So you wouldn't have that direct linkage with Talbingo. So that's something to consider. There's, at this point in time, we've only put it in our submission. Obviously, that land is controlled by national parks, and they might have some grave concerns in relation to leaving that camp there. That in their proposal, they have looked at full remediation of the site back to its natural environment there. So, there's a number of hurdles that we'd have to get over if that was to proceed and the camp was to stay there long term. The residents have raised issues in relation that they are building a camp as a temporary type camp, so there's no there's no mains power to that camp. It's going to be run on diesel generators, so for the long-term viability of that, you probably have to look at mains power, and I don't know. Obviously, it hasn't been assessed once the power station's built if there will be provisions for that there, or if it'll just be used for temporary power and infrastructure for the duration of the project.
Mr. Mayor, would we own that then? Would we have suddenly an asset?
No, it'd be on National Park.
So it wouldn't become a Brandy Mary's issue, would it, where we have to maintain it anyway?
Look, that would be part of the discussions in relation to who would control it and manage it long term if they were even to entertain that as an option. I think it's a number of discussions that have to be undertaken, and that would form part of those discussions.
Mr. Mayor, clearly we need to consider the residents of Talbingo very seriously in this whole process, and to respect the views that they have put forward and take them into consideration and to advocate on their behalf. I believe that's very important. In relation to the camp, obviously it's very early days, and that's another discussion to be had further down the track. But the rest of their concerns need to be taken into consideration very strongly, and to advocate, as I've said, to get them assurance from Snowy Hydro where we can that their concerns are going to be considered and going to be met.
Councillor Pritchard.
Mr. Mayor, I've discussed the impact on the tourism with a few of the people up there, the caravan person in particular. And there's no doubt that serious damage will be done to the tourism industry there, because the caravan park people, a lot of people coming in to do water skiing and so forth and something at a dam, and we can't be sure that activity is not going to be stopped in the future as well. So we have to think of how can we boost the tourism into Talbingo outside the immediate town activities. For example, I've got three things here I'd like to raise. One is an access to the Hume Hall walking track, so that people can easily go off to Talbingo and stay there for the night. I don't think that would be possible. But one other thing that seems remote initially, but I think is quite serious, is the Yellow Access Road, the forestry road that runs between Talbingo and Batlow. It used to be a well-maintained all-weather gravel road, and it encouraged tourists to go from Tumut to Talbingo and go up that Yellow Access Road to Batlow and come back to Tumut that way, and it's a good round trip, or from this end going down that way and coming back the other way. And in recent years, the forestry maintains it only to take the wood out. So sometimes it's virtually impassable, or certainly it's four-wheel drive. So I think somehow or other, I think we have to make sure that that Yellowstone access road is upgraded as a permanent all-weather access road, and we put it in our tourism loop. I think that's terribly important. The other one, which is a bit more remote, is that Miles Franklin was born in Talbingo, and the birthplace was under the water. Just as you drive into Talbingo on the right-hand side, you can see where the sign was. And some years ago, we were thinking about trying to get the Miles Franklin birthplace rebuilt on hard land near the, which is a council land near the country club, and have as a Miles Franklin Museum or Writers' Retreat. And so I think that could be pursued. It's a unique thing. Miles Franklin's becoming more her memory's becoming more known throughout Australia, and she's going to be increasingly important as the years go past. And I think we should have some more permanent structure there. Maybe with the help of the Miles Franklin Trust. I wrote to them many years ago about this, and I got no response, but I think maybe we could stir that up again. Whilst we've still got people who've got the capabilities of building a log house.
Thank you. So, Mr. Cox, what are your suggestions we do with the Talbingo Association?
Well, that is up for discussion there, and I don't know if Council wants to run through our submission. Are there any sort of questions in relation to what we're actually putting in our submission?
Do you have copies of those there? Do you have hard copies there?
No, unfortunately not. Not. It should be. There's an appendix. There should be an appendix in the.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
There would be one behind you on the table.
Mr. Mayor, just to finish us, the guy that runs the service station up there is very concerned about the tourism on the dam being reduced, and it may no longer be viable because the water speeders not buying petrol there.
So in the submission we have looked at this. There's a submission. There's a program that Snowy Hydro want to endorse in relation to the shop local type initiative, and I've indicated the benefits of that, and possibly set that as one of the conditions of consent, so it's set in stone in relation to using local businesses and local trades as much as possible and within reason, obviously. So that would benefit those 6 businesses in town and the service station with some of that.
Mr. Mayor, would it be reasonable for us to make a request to Snowy Hydro on behalf of the Talbingo community to complete that road that Councillor Pritchard was talking about, the Yellowstone Road, because that would certainly increase traffic, or had the potential to increase traffic to Talbingo from the southern end of our shire.
Given that it's a forestry road, it's a big ask. But certainly it's something that the state government.
Snowy Hydro is a big ask. They have to compensate Talbingo for something serious, and surely they can do a deal with state forest.
I think we're going to
Not out of the question.
I think you're going to find there's going to be a lot of tourists go to Talbingo anyway. You might not be the same boating tourists you used to get, but you'll have a lot of people wanting to come to see. So that if they have an information centre there, Snowy Hydro 1 and 2, Snowy Hydro 2 1 as well, that people can go and see, I reckon it's going to drag thousands of people in, far more than a few boatings.
I would agree. I'd say a large sign on the highway with an arrow saying Snowy 2.0 might drag a lot of people off that.
Yeah.
So I think,
and if there's an information centre there of some description, there's one there at the Tumbarumba Street Power Station. I don't know whether that'll be open, but that's the sort of thing people want to see.
so there's lots of opportunities here.
All they'll see is a concrete spillway and a petrol warehouse.
Mr. Sorry. Mr. Mayor, just looking for, in our submission, addressing the issue of the available swimming area for residents, particularly summer residents. I mean, the Tumbarumba population, Town Street population swells to sometimes 3,000 over the Easter and Christmas periods time. And if those people are the regular people that go up to where the ramp will be, and if the access road to the other side is not acceptable, is there some way we can actually encourage maybe the caravan park to put in a swimming pool to encourage swimming locally and residentially? Is that an option that we might find to look at?
So it's certainly something we could encourage, but as we know, swimming pools are something that council
I'm not
approaches
suggesting we have another swimming
very
pool.
nervously, but it's certainly something.
At the meeting, Snowy Hydro said that it'd be happy to put a swimming pool in the caravan park if they take it over afterwards. Is that not interested in long-term
It
maintenance?
sounds like a very sensible arrangement, but
Maybe develop a swimming area in the Junimar.
No, they said that can't
no, because the water goes up. And they said that that's not negotiable
Right.
very clearly.
So
Mr.
if we,
Cox?
yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, if we want to run through those items and get some consensus. So we just spoke about the Junimar pondage as an alternate. So is council's feeling in relation to that we wouldn't support that as an option?
I've said that it's not negotiable.
Yeah. Right.
And for safety reasons, they've got to do that.
Yeah. And we just spoke about the swimming pool idea, and as you alluded to, Mr. Mayor, the recurring cost of the thing that would kill council in relation to that. So the options are either no, or look at having recurring costs paid by the proponent for a period of time, or look at alternatives for the installation. There's an existing smaller pool at the caravan park. But
Look, I think the answer to dot point 2 is yes, it can be, but it's not going to be council that does it.
Yeah.
So yes, it can be.
No.
So would we amend that to council would support the concept of a swimming pool as long as council didn't have the reoccurring costs?
Council may assist in the development application or whatever, but could assist in making it possible. But it's certainly not something that we'd be looking at.
Would council consider?
Council consider.
We could report back to council on the options.
Perhaps we could favourably consider.
So that would be in our submission in relation to item number 2 there, we talk about like offsets for the loss of amenity for the spillway, and we've talked about additional community infrastructure, including walking tracks and cycling. We could amend our submission to indicate public swimming pool subject to council not incurring capital or reoccurring costs for that
It
infrastructure.
doesn't ask for a public swimming pool, it just says a swimming pool.
I think the intent would be a public swimming pool.
Mr. Cox. Sure. But we can assist in this.
Right.
I take dot 3 as just a comment.
Yeah, I would agree, Mr. Mayor.
The walking track, which is dot 4.
So we could expand that comment and indicate that including walking and cycleways possibly to T3. That's just a
Yeah,
simple amendment.
we can lobby for that, assist in lobbying for that.
Yeah.
The next one is the sceptical one. We can take that as a comment as well.
Yeah. So we can put those next to, they're both in relation to that.
Would you think they would be covered by the environmental impact study that the Snowy 2 has to do? You would think that we could raise that with them and make sure that those issues are addressed in their environmental impact statement?
Yeah, it is covered in the documentation. It's just, there are concerns about that, but that can be covered in that.
I think the cattle movement is a matter for probably Snowy Hydro and the the cattle producer.
Yeah,
Maybe even the LLS, but
yeah, so that's not ours.
and they didn't seem to think it was a major problem the other day at the meeting.
Well, they indicated there was a way that they could resolve that. Yeah. Yeah. So those next ones are all the next two are in relation to consultation, and I think the public meetings reinforced that they didn't get their representation there. So I don't think they need to be included in our submission. So we just note the.
Just another comment.
Yeah.
Just shorten them down.
So so the other matter that we need to determine is the ongoing use of the staff accommodation. Do we, does council support that we leave that in our submission, or?
I suggest, Mr Mayor, that we consider that at a future date when it's become more relevant.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we will have another opportunity when the second development application is submitted in relation to the power station and the other infrastructure.
So that's a long way off.
They're going to submit that early next year, from what I understand.
So we're happy to leave that till when?
And maybe we indicate that we have some discussions with the relevant stakeholders.
All right, so with those changes, are we, everyone?
Mr Mayor, I would just like to suggest that we can add into the submission a point about advocating for the Yellowland Road to be upgraded.
Note that it's an important link.
Yes.
And is in need of some maintenance or needs upgrading?
Upgrading, definitely. And signposting. Currently you need to have the electronic
GPS
to get you through there.
Okay.
Can I just bring us back to the social and economic, where we've got comment, and its comment there is council would like to express an interest in the accommodation camp to remain at the completion of the project to be used as a tourism accommodation. Do we really want to be that precise at this moment? I mean, I know it's comment, but it's there, and the council would like to. I'm not sure I feel that that's the sense of what's been happening at the table right now, that we want it there.
It is an opportunity, but I think it's something that, well, maybe we need to soften it a little bit and say, explore the options.
Because that says it's definitely wants to stay there. Even though it's a comment, it's there, isn't it?
You're happy to soften it, Councillor Cross?
Do we need to get a report on how much the infrastructure will cost, like sewage and water?
We don't know what's there yet.
No.
It's all going to be on this, it's going to cover that. So
I'd still like to sign this.
So,
What
words, Councillor, isn't it? Do you have any suggestions?
Council consider with further consultation. Consultation with Snowy too, consultation.
Yeah.
For the camp to remain.
The decision will have to be confidential. I can get that done.
Through the chair, we're in committee at the moment.
Yes, I know.
If you can give your intent to Mr Cox, he will draft something and we'll come back and consider that following confidential. Good suggestion.
Right.
Mr Chairman.
Anything further before we go back into committee? Nothing? Right, thanks, Mr Cox, you're right.
Yeah, yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah.
You have enough direction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Move committee.
Move to the other.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Cross, thank you. All in favour? Okay.
We need a
Need a motion that we...
Procedural motion to adjourn that item of business.
Till after the confidential. Councillor Cross
10.9.
and Councillor Smith, that we defer till after confidential. 10.9?
Yeah,
10.9. Cross and Smith, I think, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. All in favour? Carried.
Cross and Smith. So that's it for procedural motion.
Takes us to 102, minutes of the Aboriginal Liaison Committee.
What is it?
Councillor Pritchard. Yeah.
Catch up.
Seconder? Councillor Wright.
Ready to go?
No, across to the Aboriginal Liaison Committee, 11.1.
Mr Mayor, I just question whether this committee had a quorum of voting people attending it. There was 5 people there. Seems to me there was only 3 that we had voting.
The quorum of this committee is 4.
Yes.
I haven't done it.
Before the...
It's on 10.10 after the committees.
I believe the delegate has voting rights.
It's fine, I'm just questioning it. I'm not saying I'm right.
If Council wishes, through the chair, you could defer this item to the next meeting, and we can look into that matter and report back to Council.
Yes, just for the safety of records.
You happy with that move and seconder?
Let's get on to it.
I agree with you, but there are times when we need to make sure
There
we're
are
right.
5 people there.
Each appointed member of the committee present at that meeting shall have 1 vote on the matter. Councillor Pritchard is an appointed member of the committee, so therefore he's got a vote. I'm happy for it to go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
happy that there's a
fine.
quorum.
Fine.
Who was the member and second?
Pritchard and Wright. Councillor Pritchard?
Yep. That's
All good? No other comments?
Yeah.
Put the motion. All in favour? Carried. Minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held 8th of August. Councillor Benjamin. Councillor Wright. Councillor Benjamin. Councillor Wright.
Nothing to say.
Director Howard.
Yes, through the chair, can I just note that we resolve to present the terms of reference for this committee at the next meeting. Should have been attached to the minutes, but then.
This will come back as a separate report in terms of reference, because the committee considered some changes to the terms of reference.
Thank you. No further comment? Put the motion. All in favour? Carried. 11.3 minutes to the Youth Council. Councillor Cross, you're moving?
Yep, I'm with that. I just make a note that I actually attended that meeting and I have a blank space next to my attendance.
We can amend that. Seconder?
Did you go to sleep?
Councillor Smith? Councillor Pritchard, I'll do the jokes. Any Councillor Cross? Anything else to note other than the fact that you were there?
No, we did meet the new youth development officer, which was really good to put a face to his name.
That's good. Thank you. All right, thank you, and they're doing a wonderful job, these youth. I'll put the motion, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. You can convey that to the youth council. Thank you. Festival calling
question about that report, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask a question about that?
Yes. Sorry, I went a bit quick.
Right at the end of that report, there were election results, and a publicity officer by the name of Jeremy Hanna. Is he connected with the development of the proposed gym project? Jeremy, is that the one?
No, different Jeremy.
Different. Thank you, I just wanted to check.
That's all right, okay. Festival Forum Left Committee. 11.4 minutes of the committee. Festival Forum Left Committee. 3 recommendations. Page 133.
Move.
Thank you, Councillor Risley. Councillor Wright.
Nothing to, it's good to see that there is a committee forming and well known everybody in Truman County community.
Thanks very much. Put the motion, all in favour? Carried. We'll move to the addendum, the late report 10.10. Sofford Working Group funding application. There's recommendations there. The funding application to upgrade key timber haulage roads. 2, that we take the lead agency role in submission and administration for grant funding for the project listed. And 3, that we write the Sofford's Working Group, Greater Hume Council and Cootamundra Gundagai Council advising on Council's resolution on the matter. So we have a mover. Councillor Wright, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Wright.
I think it's a great move for us to do because we'll be in control of the project, if you like. And it feeds our 2 towns all the timber that comes in, so I think it's important that we look after that and support the SWG.
Thank you. Anyone further? Put the motion, the late report, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Someone like to move that we go into confidential? Councillor Cross, Councillor Smith, all in favour? Thank you. Thank you. And resuming the ordinary meeting of the 23rd of August, I'd like the General Manager to report on what was discussed in confidential.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to not the snowy one, sorry, the one confidential item, Tumbarumba Rosewood survey. Thanks, Susan. The Council resolved in respect to the Tumbarumba to Rosewood Rail Project Surveying Services RFT 2018/05. Can you pull up the resolutions?
Oh, sorry.
The Council resolved in accordance with Section 55 of the New South Wales Local Government Act 1993 to accept the tender of Candice Consulting Surveyors Proprietary Limited for the provision of surveying services for the Tumbarumba to Rosewood Rail Trail project for the lump sum of $159,000 and $159,500, including GST, and advise the unsuccessful tenderers in writing, and authorise the General Manager to enter into a contract with Candice Consulting Surveyors Proprietary Limited for the provision of surveying services for the Tumbarumba to Rosewood Rail Trail project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. And resuming the report we deferred, 10.9. 10.9. So,
93.
Mr. Cox, you've come back with some changes, suggestions?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think we need to acknowledge the Tabingo Progress and Ratepayers Association as an attachment to our submission, excluding, we're looking at excluding some of the items that they've got in there in relation to the, we've got, the Junimar Pondage is a safe alternative, so we exclude that. The swimming pool being built in town, the duration of the project, been 3 years, whether it could extend to 10 years, I don't think that's founded, and indicating that their concerns about the community consultation, given that we did have that meeting on the 8th of August, where their concerns were raised and met there, so I don't think we should support those. And also, given the discussion we had, further amend our submission to include or have some further discussions with the relevant stakeholders about the accommodation facility, retaining the accommodation facility, include a walking track between Talbingo to T3, and also include the upgrade of the Yellowwood Road between Batlow and Snowy Mountains Highway to facilitate general use by general public.
Susan, could we just highlight the additions in blue or something, so the councillors can clearly see what's on their papers in comparison?
Did you include the walkways to the human upper walking track?
There's walkways and cycles mentioned. Include.
Councillors, it's just the sections in blue that have been added to the existing resolutions, if you wanted to take the time to read that.
The Talbingo to T3 walkway and a walkway. Sorry, we've got council support for the following items raised by the Talbingo and Ratepayers Association, and it's got support.
It's got the wording up above. You just scroll down again.
Excluding council support, so we're definitely excluding.
2 pages, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure when we edit the minutes that it doesn't go over that page, it's
Yeah.
very clear. Thanks, Susan.
Hey, everyone clear on this?
Yeah.
So did we have a move and a second for that? We didn't. So there's new recommendations there. So we call for a move and a second. Councillor Wilson. Councillor Wilson, would you like to?
No, thank you very much, Mr Mayor. We had a productive conversation, confidential, and I think the outcome is excellent.
Thank you. So I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michael.